Alright, good morning YouTube. Today we're going to talk about wiring the ID4Motion cluster to your AEM Infinity. So a couple weeks ago I received the update to the cluster that allows CAN bus information to be transmitted from the ECU to the cluster. So you'll get things like fuel pressure, boost sensor, AFR, and any other sensors that you have wired to your AEM Infinity to get sent to the cluster, provided ID4Motion continues to update the firmware, which I assume they'll continue to develop. They're probably working out, where to place the information and how to arrange it in future updates. So what I've done is I've already wired it because I was using the gauge art CAN bus gauge previously, and I had already wired the pinouts to the gauge pod on my dash. And so what I did was I just tapped into the existing wires to the gauge art cluster and connected it to the ID4Motion cluster. So the sheet here shows you the pinout for the accessory connector. Now you'll have to check to see if the original, I have the original AEM Infinity harness has this D factory ECU connector. So it's basically an output input-output that's on the ECU harness itself. I'll show you here in a second. But as you can see here, D9 and D10 are the CAN bus. So D9 is the high side and D10 is the low side. So remember that when we get to the cluster, excuse me, to the ECU connector. I went ahead and disconnected it. So, alright. So here's the wire that comes from the ID4Motion cluster, and here is the ECU connector, and so here's the pin out right here. So this is the top side. So as you can see, so the red one here is connected to this green wire, and that's the D10, the low side. So red is the low side, green is the high side. That I went ahead and T-tapped them into these two wires that I already had for my gauge art gauge pod. And so had to finagle around a little bit with it, make sure that the wiring was crimped properly, and that it was and I had to figure out which side was which because they didn't label it. So that's a little bit of guesswork that I figured out for you, but that's how you do it. So let me go ahead and plug this back in. Forgive the messiness under my dash here and the darkness, and just pop it back in. And so, and there's enough slack. There's enough slack in the wire where you can put where you can put the cover back. And you see there I got my yellow jacket, so hopefully I won't need that. But from what I saw in the cluster, it reads everything straight from the ECU, so it may have removed all the little fine adjustments from the cluster. Yeah, here's my stick. Otherwise, it'll go up too high and hit my hard top. So let me go ahead and fire it up for you guys here. Keys. Wake up the neighborhood on a Sunday morning. Good times. Alright, here we go. Alright, it's been over a week as well, so may have a hard time cranking. Alright, so I'll run through the menu changes here for you. Alright, so under sensors now, so now all your sensor data is there's no options, because now it's receiving everything from the ECU. Hopefully you guys can see that. Same thing with the coolant temp. The fuel level still has options, but I haven't taken out for a drive yet, so that's one thing I'm going to have to do as a follow-up to verify that you know, the speed calibration is well. But given that my rear differential has been changed out to shorter gearing and the different size wheels, I suspect I'll have to use my yellow jacket to compensate for the changes in gearing and wheel diameter. There's much there. Alright, let's fire it up. You can see the ECU reading the RPMs. There we go. Alright, you won't see any temperature change because, well, it's stone cold right now. Let's see, we got coolants at 71 degrees Fahrenheit, oil 71, oil pressure 84. Alright, so what I'd like to see in future updates is all this data being available right there on the cluster. Particularly fuel pressure would be nice. AFR would be good as well. Boost, obviously. So for y'all who don't already know, this gauge chart is really handy. Helped me diagnose a lot of problems in the process of modifying my car. Get this mosquito out of here. And so there you can see the temperature rising and being read from the ECU sent to the cluster. But yeah, you know, those who've been modeling your car for a long time know how critical it is to monitor your sensor data and to make sure everything is working properly, because you know, when you start messing with things that Honda didn't design, you're not going to do as good a job as they did in designing the car in the first place, right? So being aware of critical information such as coolant temperature, air temperature, oil pressure, fuel pressure, gives you that situational awareness to let you know if things going off. Matter of fact, I moved my ambient air temperature sensor from the intake manifold to the charge pipe, and it was an aluminum pipe, and I brazed the bung to the charge pipe, and after a particularly hot day, the brazing, the bung fell off, and I didn't realize it until I looked at my air temperature, and it was like over 140 something degrees, and so you know, bad or anything like that, but you know, having that temperature sensor, you know, readily available and easily read tipped me off that something was broken and clear. And sure enough, the weld had fallen off, and the dang sensor fell through the bottom and was laying in a parking lot where I'd driven it around. So you know, like I said, if you're modifying your car, it really benefits you to be aware of all the sensor data that's available and having it easily seen. And so I like this cluster, but it's impossible to read in direct sunlight. So I'm looking forward to having it there directly on the dash cluster. And again, screen is super legible, and even in broad daylight, very, very high quality and very easy to read. Alright, that's it. I'll see you guys again here soon when I go take it for a drive and test the speed calibration against my phone. Alright, thanks. Later.